We should be live.
Yep.
Give it a second to get everything going here. And let the YouTube send out all the notifications and all that good stuff.
I just got a notification now that there's live streaming on my phone. So it did go out.
Yep, yeah, it just popped up. Yep. Let's see. We're gonna do this so I can see it. Pop that out, and we'll wait for folks to get in.
All right.
Let
Nick
me pull the chat.
441's on. He was on last time, I think.
Yeah, that's Nick. Let me. We should be able to see it. There we go. That's what I was trying to get up. All right. So we got everything running. We got people coming in.
Cowboys on.
Let's see. It shows we got 10 watching,
Good.
so we'll give it one more second. So while everybody's starting to get in here, just another live chat that Noel and I wanted to do. Before we get started, a couple of things I just wanted to go over real quick, just kind of remind everybody that's watching. Recent events have just kind of reminded me and prompted me to reiterate this. It's something I've said before multiple times in videos and everything else. But guys and gals, whoever, be very mindful of who you really lend your devoted attention to on social media. Just because somebody's got a flashy background, just because they've got a ton of subscribers, just because they've got, you
The
know,
latest gear.
fancy videos with expensive
Yeah.
stuff and fancy editing and flashy videos and all of that, it doesn't just because they're edgy and like in your face doesn't always mean that they a have your best interest in mind and b is putting out information that's relevant to you. It might be good information, but it might not be relevant to you and what you're doing. So just always remember that there are people out there, unfortunately, on social media who are not always what they appear to be. Okay. So just be very mindful of who you just dive in all for and become a fanboy for. I've told y'all before, don't even become a fanboy of me, which I'm nowhere near as big as some of these channels, obviously. But go go do your own thinking. Don't let others think for you just because of social media popularity and what all. So with that said, Noel and I have got some videos planned out that we have been discussing behind the scenes, and we've got some stuff we want to try to start bringing to y'all that will just be um, stuff that we want to present to you from our point of view and our take and what we
Yeah.
do. It won't necessarily be that we're saying this is how you got to do it or that it's right for you, but just stuff to give you food for thought and show how we're going about various things. And it's a long list of things, so it's not all going to come out at once. It'll take us a little while to cover and do all that. But just stay tuned for some of that. There's things we want to start doing in that
And
regard.
so it's kind of like, and John, you and I have talked about it. It's kind of like, you attend a firearms course, and it may not be the same way you do it, but take that technique, put it in your, war chest, and someday you can draw from it, for some type of situation that may save your life. So, you know, take it, leave it, put it in your war chest, and maybe it'll help you someday.
Well, and you can go to classes. You and I've talked about this before. You can go to classes and you don't, there's like no rule anywhere. It's not like a law that because you went to an instructor's class that you have to adopt and do everything that that instructor taught in the class.
Absolutely.
You can pick and choose, right? It's a really cool thing. You're free to do this. You can pick and choose different things from different instructors and put them all together for
To make it
yourself
work. Yeah,
to make it work for your situation. It's a
absolutely.
crazy concept.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get right to the meat of tonight. Um, I know some of you have been blowing up my email over the past year or so, and I was finally able to make it happen. And I've got a special guest that I'm going to bring in. But before I do, you need to go and grab your secret agent googly doos, get your hard tat, buckle the chin strap, and get something to cover your cornhole. Because I've got none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Dooshbags Brother Dick, who is
All
joining
right.
us now. The man is here, people,
He's here, and
for
we are so glad.
and he's already
Is that
got
a beer sock?
he's already got another beer. So glad to have good cousin Dick on here. In case a lot of y'all didn't know, he and I do stay in fairly close touch with each other behind the scenes on things, and he's another one of those other brothers from other mothers kind of folks. If y'all watch his channel, you know that I'm a big fan of his stuff. Um, Big fan of him kind of getting semi back into the game a little bit with things. Um, he, he he's one of the few people I'll say you ain't got to copy him, but boy, you better sure listen to what he's putting out when he's putting it out. So, Dick, welcome aboard. Appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, I
Absolutely.
appreciate the introduction, and I hope I continue to not embarrass myself.
Well, if you do, you know you're in good company
Yeah,
because self embarrassment is kind of a way of life. It's kind of like
it's a
Murphy, just
requirement.
stay right there. So,
Well, that's what we're all about, isn't it? I mean, there are folks out there whose job is to just look cool, but I ain't one of them. My job here is to impart wisdom. It may not be cool guy stuff, but my goal is to protect y'all from doing dumb things and maybe hurting yourself when you can prevent it.
I think that's kind of the goal for all of us.
Yep.
So, um, Dick's already done some Q and A's on his channel. Um, you know, covering his stuff and everything. So, if y'all want to hear about all that, go to his channel and check it out. In a minute, I think we'll look at maybe seeing if anybody's got any questions in chat and just do a little live Q and A. But before we get into that, um, getting kind of on a serious note, we've all been kind of following current events, and if y'all haven't been following current events, there's a lot going on that might seem fairly innocuous on its own, but things start adding up to a bigger picture when you start looking at all of them together. Um, and I know, and both of y'all can chime in on this, but I know like last Friday, was it Thursday or Friday, we had a number of banks under cyber attack and
Hmm.
stuff. Um, I got a couple of friends that weren't even able to make their mortgage payments because of issues with their banks. There's a big bank that got taken over by the FDIC that conveniently just wasn't in the news, and they did it like they typically do on a Friday evening, so that it doesn't make the news cycle. But all those kind of things start adding up, And then, like today, um, there was some massive cyber attacks all through Australia. It was hitting their power grid, their financial system, the whole 9 yards. And I mean, you can call it what you want, but I'm not anywhere out of the realm of considering that just another test run before somebody tries to pull something big. Um, we have got a lot of folks in the world right now getting really spiced up about things, and I would encourage everybody to pay attention to what's happening right here in our own backyards, because if this stuff all kicks off overseas, those two big old ponds that have protected us in history are not going to be the same barriers they used to be. We will see stuff here at varying levels of magnitude, and don't think that it doesn't affect you because it's happening over yonder somewhere.
And resources are going to be spread so thin that we as citizens, I think, we're going to be on our own for a very long time. Very long time. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, John. You know, if you look at the big picture and how events are unfolding, it's just one thing after the other thing after the other thing, and it's just kind of like a snowball going down the hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it just, you know, reaches there and just explodes. So I think we're in the things that we've been preaching are the things that people need to take heed of and make sure they're prepared for whatever is going to happen. So
Well, I mean, everything you've said, Dick, it just goes right along with what we've talked about stop worrying about trying to be, like you're auditioning for, SEAL Team 6, and start worrying about setting your stuff up to take care of things at your front door.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy. You know that. We've discussed all the current events over the past couple of years, and it just seems like things have reached a very fragile state. You know, with our borders being open as long as they have been, we can't keep track of all the unfriendlies that might be walking amongst us. And when you set the stage for all the kinds of unrest that we have done, both here and abroad, there are factions that don't like our way of life, and they are just itching for an excuse to demonstrate it. But we as citizens can't depend on, well, you saw it with the mass shooter up there in Maine. Guy ran around hiding from the police for how long?
couple of days.
And everybody was looking for that feller.
They had
And
350 people looking for him, including 4 different federal agencies.
Yeah. Now you got everybody looking for one guy. Imagine if it's hundreds of guys all doing the same kind of thing all at the same time. You can't spread everybody that thin looking for all them fellers at the same time and expect to yield results. So you, as a private citizen, got to take care of your own business and make sure that you're ready to protect yourself from something like that.
I mean, that's a perfect example. If that would have been, if there would have been one person like that in each state, just 50 individuals, all at the same time, can you imagine the absolute chaos? Because people don't understand. I don't think people really realize just how small a lot of the federal agencies are. Like, for example, they had FBI and AFT up there. Well, AFT alone's only like what 2,000-3,000 people.
Yeah, but
And then you
they're
take
also limited by a lot of red tape. They got hoops they got to
right.
jump through in order to achieve anything. They got to wait for permission from somebody. They got to get clearance. Unless they're going after John Q. Public, where they can just basically stomp all over you. They've got all kinds of protocol that limits their effectiveness. When we
Well,
need
so
to protect us, they are hindered in that endeavor.
I was an agent at one point in one of my
Right.
careers, and before we got out of the office, we had to like have a 12-page ops plan before we could do anything, and it had to be up and down the chain of command. That's just bureaucracy. It's just everything had to go up. The upper management had to go everything. So we as agents couldn't do our job, and that's the same thing a lot of times that happens in these situations. It's so slow. It's a quagmire. Nothing generates. They can't go to that door and knock on it.
You take the slowness and then you add in just the limited numbers. If they get spread out over 50 states, as big as the freaking continental United States is, the amount of manpower that could be tied up like that, and in the meantime, other people could be doing bad things as soon as they realize, oh, there's a whole lot of folks tied up chasing that one dude.
Just think, if when 9/11 hit, okay, if there was a few attacks out in rural areas, the whole country, everywhere, would be paranoid. People would be shooting each other because they thought that was a bad guy, because they don't. It's not just limited to New York; it's in the whole country.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and people would be just going crazy.
And that goes to the point. You got to be ready to take care of yourself and not be reliant on making that call for somebody else to come help you.
Yeah.
Let me. Do any of you guys that are in chat right now, do y'all have any questions that you would like to ask? Obviously, we can't get to everybody if y'all start barreling through the chat, but if you got a question especially for good cousin Dick while we've got him here, y'all throw it up so we can take a look at it.
Bring in some questions.
Well,
while we're letting that generate and some questions, Dick, I actually have a question. So, like, there have been like things, assignments, jobs, events that have kind of shaped me and my kind of why I'm doing this. Was there anything that happened to you that kind of made you get into doing the videos, the way you do them, and stuff like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I spent many years watching YouTube videos, and from very different content creators. Were in the beginning, it all seemed good and well. Folks were just trying to impart useful information, but then I started to see a pattern, and it didn't really have anything to do with life events or anything in my background or experience. It was more or less the fact that I started to see the trend where the popular channels was just starting to parrot each other, even if the information was not good. And it was alarming because some of the things that were being extolled as useful tactical information were dangerous. I saw the potential for folks who might not be quite as informed as I was ending up adopting some of these tactical ideals and getting themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
So it was my goal was simply to dispel some myths and get people off the bandwagon of just listening to whatever some guy in a flannel shirt and an expensive rifle had to say about how you're going to fight, because that ain't how it always works.
Yeah. And those party favors start coming your way.
Yeah, a bi-directional party favor exchange is a lot
Absolutely.
different than banging steel gongs or a cardboard silhouette.
Standing out in the open. Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Especially on your own private range where you've memorized every single one of the targets and ran it 800 times before you actually do a video on it.
Yeah, that always looks impressive.
It is. It is. So,
Yeah.
good friend Survival Metal Man makes a very poignant comment, and it goes to kind of what I was saying there at the opening. So many of them are doing just that. They're turning into movie makers with fancy intros and cutscenes and entertainment, and not actually putting out the useful information like they some once were. So there
And
is
that's all
one.
well. I mean, we all need entertainment. That's what
Right,
YouTube
right.
is there. We need that. Just like we all used to watch action movies when we was kids. You need the Commando and you need the Predator and the Terminator, but real life ain't that. We all got to recognize that a real life gunfight hurts.
Oh yeah.
Explosions kill.
The
And
the, the bad
you can't
guys
just you
the
can't
bad
just
guys have
stand
to
there
play.
reloading and waiting for it takes, even if you're that good at changing your magazine, the 2.5 seconds it took for you to change your magazine is a lot longer than the amount of time it takes for that party favor launched by the guy across the way to reach your body.
Right.
That, that's the thing. Everybody seems to forget that a real fight is not a static square range. The other guy has a say so in the fight as well. And unless he agrees to just stand there and let you shoot him, which he's probably not, um, you're not the only one that has a say so in how the fight goes.
Yeah, you don't get a timeout in a gunfight.
Right.
No, and I don't have a problem with the entertainment stuff. My problem is when the people doing the entertainment stuff know that it's entertainment stuff and don't make that a thing. Hey guys, don't do this. This is just for entertainment and for fun.
Yeah,
They,
it should come with a disclaimer.
right, right. Um, there was one question a while ago, and I'll throw it up there for you. I'll let you decide if you want to answer it, and if you don't have to. But from Ineptocracy, why did you decide to axe your channel sometime back, if you don't mind saying?
There were some confidentiality and personal risk concerns involved. So my privacy had been violated, and I needed to wipe the slate, so to speak. Now, I appreciate all the kind words from the folks who voiced their displeasure over me losing some of them vidges. But rest assured that old Dick ain't done, and there will be more content of a similar nature with updated concepts.
Yep, that's
Well, good. Good.
so. We can touch on this one real quick. Log Cabin School. After listening to Radio Contra and taking RTO, etc., classes that Brushbeater teaches, NC Scout, I see a lot of these young guys getting themselves killed via their comms practices. That is a straight up fact. Um, these people do not. So I was talking. Noel, was it you and I that were talking about this earlier today? I was talking with somebody now. Um, for example, everybody wants to gatekeep and hate on ye old Baofeng radio, right?
Yeah.
Or as I have to give a shout out to Not a Rubicon, as he correctly pronounces it, the Bufang, which if you haven't seen his video on that, you should go watch it because it's absolutely awesome. But not a Rubicon's got some good stuff out, and the Bufang, as he calls it, everybody likes to hate on that, especially the big ham guys and the people that have dumped a ton of money into their expensive radio setups. Now, I'm not here to tell you that that's the best radio in the world to have. It is absolutely on the lower level of getting into to radio and communications. However, for 90% of people, it's going to be a good, solid, viable option with a little bit of training, such as what my good friend NC Scout does over at Brush Beater. One of the problems that I see is these when you start seeing people pushing, you've got to have this expensive radio and you've got to have this encryption and you got to have all this stuff. There's a lot of folks out there that instead of learning proper ComSec, aka communication security, instead of learning how to properly use brevity codes, one-time pads, simple things like that, that are extremely hard to almost impossible to break, they want to rely on mechanical encryption in the radio. And what I see a lot of people, foresee a lot of people doing, they listen to those guys and they get those radios and they automatically think, oh, it's got encryption on it. When I'm talking to one of the other radios that's got encryption on it, or send a message or whatever, it's encrypted. So, and it's got the latest and greatest encryption. So I'm fine. And then suddenly people just start talking and sending messages in normal ways when there is pretty much, for the most part, there are some very minor exceptions, but we're not going to get into those. But for the most part, there is nothing publicly available that you can get that the encryption on it cannot be broken by a lot of folks with just a modicum of equipment and or skill. And if you start talking about the highly specialized SIGINT type people, they're laughing at that. Okay, you are going to get complacent relying on that encryption and get yourself in trouble. It doesn't matter what kind of encryption it got, whether it's analog, digital, and anything else. You better freaking learn how to use brevity codes, how to change them up regularly, how to change frequencies, how to use a one-time pad, all the kind of stuff you can learn at RTO classes, and make it so that when the other folks that are going to listen to you, when they start hearing you talking about the purple bunny with the pancake on his head over by the chicken fence, make it take them a week or three to figure out what you said. And by the time they figure out what you said, you done changed it to something else and they're starting from scratch all over again.
Yeah.
And keep your, I've done videos on this, and I know Dick, you've mentioned it a time or two as well. Guys, keep your radio signals small. You don't necessarily have to try to talk to everybody on the other side of the country unless you specifically have somebody on the other side of the country that you need to talk to.
Yeah.
For just general stuff around your house, farm, homestead, retreat, whatever, keep that signal as small as possible. Make the folks have to come to you to listen to you.
You know, John, that's exactly what I was going to say, was that if you can encrypt a message, okay, that's fine, but you're still emitting that that signal. People will directionally find you because the equipment's out there, and we all know about that. And if you think that everything you can just talk freely and just hold that push the talk button down and just get the diarrhea of the mouth, they're going to find you if they want you, right? And if you don't have that and you're using one-time pads or whatever, and you're keeping it short and you're breaking and all that kind of stuff like you're supposed to and be disciplined, then that will keep you out of trouble. And just like you said, John, what is real important is if you're only talking on a patrol, all right, don't put your transmission signal up on high, put it on low, you know? And by the way, that's what arm and hand arm signals are for too. But so they're not out of the woods. It's a false, in my opinion, it's a false sense of security. And yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and I'll echo what you just said. If you're out there on a patrol, there ought to be no need for you to be using a radio for anything. You ought to be able to communicate with each other. You can't be so far away from your help that you need to summon them by radio anyway. If you are, they're going to get there just in time to find your bloody corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only caveat to that would be if you've got a sizable area that you've got to cover, you'll want the patrol to check back in with home plate every once in a while so that somebody can keep an idea of where you're at, so that if you get into trouble, they kind of got at least a general idea where you're last at. But that doesn't require a 30-minute conversation.
Yeah, you don't need a back and forth for that.
There are graphics and control measures to just say one word and everybody knows what.
It can be simple as base 1 Charlie out, and whatever location Charlie is, base knows that's where you're at. You don't have to go into any detail about it. And that was a brief, short, quick. If anybody was scanning frequencies, if they didn't come up on that frequency in the 3 seconds that it took for you to say that, they scan right by you.
That's exactly right.
That's the other thing I see people doing. And again, this is old school signal school and me going back to the old dark ages when we had all analog stuff. People right now like to use radios like a cell phone. Everybody's so used to talking on a cell phone, they try to use a radio the same way. Mm-hmm. Hey, Fred, did you see that over there by the other side of... No, you got to get out of that mindset. I don't care if you're talking to your wife, you got a big wood pile out behind the barn, and you got to go get some more wood to bring in for the wood burning stove, and your wife's in the house with the kids. You need to be able to tell her where you're at, what you're doing, so that she knows without giving a 20-minute conversation with, every bloody detail in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was trained that, as a lieutenant, if my company commander told me something, you know what my response was? Roger, over. That's it. Nothing else to say.
Yeah, it needs to be very short and sweet. And I mean, we could go down that comms rabbit hole, friggin'.
Yeah, well, we did kind of start down that rabbit hole.
Sunday.
We do that.
But so here's a good point, and I'm gonna break into a different point with this. But a lot of civilian medics are going to have to break the habit of calling the report. So this hits on two topics: the medical side and the comm side. So there's not going to be anybody, if you're fortunate enough to have enough people where you can actually have a medic out on a security patrol with you, say for context purposes around your property, because that's genuinely where you're going to want to be. If you get into trouble, you're not calling in a 9 line, because there's not going to be a helio chopper or a big ambulance coming to get you. It might be that Cousin Joe can grab the only working 4-wheeler that you got and go flying back, and you can throw him across the front cargo rack, and maybe he can boogity out of there. But he don't need a 9-line report for that. It's just, hey, Fred's shot. Joe, can you come get him?
Yeah.
And then when we get, and Noel and I have had this conversation, and Dick, I don't know if I've talked to you about it or not, but something that folks have got to get through their heads, and this is a very semi-dark, semi-depressing point. Everybody likes to take all the trauma classes and TC3 classes and all that, and that's great. You absolutely should know how to do all that stuff right now, because You likely might need it in everyday life. One of your loved ones might need it. You might roll up on a car accident. There's all kind of reasons why you need to know that information right now. But you also have to keep it in your head. What applies right now ain't going to necessarily translate over to if, God forbid, we have to start doing this stuff for real. Because if it's to the point that we're having to do security patrols around our property or fend off the roving, pillaging, plundering hordes, then that's going to mean that there is no first aid care, there is no medical care, there's no ambulances, there ain't no hospital you're getting to. So having a case of 50 tourniquets and 50 pressure bandages and 2 cartons full of chest seals is probably a little bit of a waste of money. You'd be far better off having a lot of band-aids and gauze pads and gauze so that you can put like polysporin or something so you can cover up that cut that you got while you were chopping firewood, or from the briar that you pushed out of the way while you were on patrol and got cut, so that it doesn't get infected and you don't die from sepsis. Because you're only going to need that tourniquet or pressure bandage probably once. And
Yeah.
even then, for me, and you guys can agree, disagree, whatever, if it's to that point, I'm not even sure that it's worth carrying a tourniquet or a pressure bandage, because unless you've actually got a full-blown trauma surgeon, vascular surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, etc., all at your disposal, a tourniquet is just going to prolong your suffering.
Right. Well, and in the chat here, so the log cabin school, he's got a good point there. And then the practical rifleman, he's saying the same thing. Who's going to administer this stuff? If guy gets shot, and he's still alive, tourniquet, you got to take tourniquet off sometime. If it's if it's in the main part of the body, check out, see what kind of antibiotics you can give them. But that's about it.
You can throw that chest seal on, but what do you do for that hole through their lung?
That's exactly right.
Anybody who's watched my channel for any length of time knows that I am a big proponent of not over preparing for the medical. You can treat minor injuries, but once the party has kicked off and the S has HTF, you're not going to have the same medical resources. Folks, you better get used to folks just bleeding out. Because even if you got a tourniquet, even if you got a chest seal, even if you can pack a wound, at some point you got to take the packing out, and that feller's going to start bleeding a lot. And
that's
if you
exactly right.
You don't have the surgical tools, or if the surgical tools you got ain't sterilized because you've been using them over and over again, that fella's going to die infection, and that's a slow, painful way to go.
So I worked at a hospital. It was an orthopedic, but it was a hospital, and I asked multiple doctors if you were in an austere condition and there was a gunshot wound, what could be done? And they all just like, oh. And you can't do. They're surgeons. They wouldn't do surgery because, like you just said, there's no sterilization. You get an infection in there, and that'll kill you quicker than the bullet will, probably. So you're in a really bad situation, and you just got to kind of
Civil War. You're back to Civil War medicine. I mean, if you think about it, and this is what I can't get people to understand sometimes. If you take a round, say through the thigh, right, and it hits your femoral artery, a bullet that goes through your leg and damages that femoral artery has also just tore up a whole lot of very important muscles. It's likely shattered the bone. Mm-hmm. At that point, you need an orthopedic surgeon to repair that femur. You need a vascular surgeon to be able to fix that freaking femoral artery, you need a general surgeon to patch everything else up and close it up. Otherwise, you're literally back to Civil War medicine where you put a tourniquet as high up on it as you can, and then you take whatever rusty hacksaw you got and try to cut it off.
Yeah.
And then you hope that you can contain the bleeding afterwards until it closes up and heals up. And now you've got someone that probably needs a whole lot of serious pain medication, a whole lot of antibiotics, a whole lot of other things to help them heal. And you've got an invalid that not only is now very limited in what they can do, but the whole time they're recovering, you've got to have people
You
dedicated
got to
24/7 to taking care of them.
and every doctor that you just mentioned to do what they need to do pretty much needs a sterilized surgery room.
They need a level 1 trauma center.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, modern medicine has been great. I mean, we've got that golden hour and we can save a lot of lives, but those lives are all predicated on being at that capable hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that
Now, granted, folks have been surviving battle wounds since the
yeah,
dawn of time, but they, the history don't remember the folks that died in battle after the battle.
right.
Yeah, good point.
They don't differentiate the fellers what got killed by a wound 24 days later.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, if I can remember this stat right, if you guys in the chat can correct me, or one of you guys can correct me, in the Revolutionary War, there were 600,000 casualties, and approximately 400,000 of them died of non-combat injuries, meaning dysentery, malaria, frostbite, exposure, dehydration. There you go, too. That's a killer in austere. A lot of people don't even think about that. So,
Nope.
just thought I'd throw
I mean,
that out there.
the point in getting off down that rabbit hole was just, there can be an argument made that when the party kicks off to that level, you might be doing yourself a favor by not even carrying the tourniquet with you, because it might be a quicker, less agonizing death
Just kick it right there.
to bleed out on the spot.
I think I had to touch on that on one of my Q&A videos. Somebody asked the question about tourniquets, and I made it a point to recommend that there will be times when it's better for y'all to just bleed out and save your friends the grief and agony of watching you die slower.
Yep. Like I said, I mean, we're talking about infection and everything. How many people survived wounds in the Civil War, had amputations done, and then a slow, agonizing, painful 30 days later died from the gangrene that set in on the bloody stump? I mean, do a little bit of diving and research on that, and you'll see just how horrible of a way that is to go.
Yeah. See, Practical Rifleman got it right there in the questions there.
Exactly.
Pull the pin for me and tuck it underneath my butt.
Right. I mean, that would be a lot more practical way. And again, this is all the deep stuff that so many people don't want to touch on and talk about, but it's the reality. And I know it's because it's not it's not cool. It turns people away. And, like I said, there in a total grid down situation, you're likely to go through 500 Band-Aids, but probably only one pressure bandage.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot more blisters and burns than you are bullet wounds, hopefully.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, because that's the other thing. We can go down that rabbit hole. You're talking about more of that stuff than bullet wounds. It's probably because, contrary to popular opinion, every day is not going to be you're getting up and bangity, 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 running and gunning all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of
If
your
it
day,
is, you're in the wrong place.
you're
Exactly.
doing something wrong and it ain't going to last
Yeah,
long.
you done something wrong. You got to get out of there.
You may, however, spend a whole lot of time sitting in a chair behind a couple of pushed up cars at a makeshift barricade, just pulling guard duty so somebody
Yeah,
don't come sneaking in on you. There may be a whole lot of you just sitting around doing that. You know, there'll be a whole lot of taking care of food and water, and most people have to have fire to cook with and stuff, so you're going to be cutting wood and stacking wood, and
yeah.
while you're doing all that, somebody's still got to be doing that other thing of sitting around on security. you know
Yep.
you'll be doing a whole lot of sitting around with that rifle slung, more so than you will with it up doing your split time speed reloads.
Well, so practical rifleman brings up a good point. It's right on point, is what we're saying. Neosporin may be a better prep than chest seals in a situation. Absolutely, 100%.
I have been preaching that forever.
Yeah,
Like, especially one of the favorite things I like is getting the little individual packs of polysporin. They're stupid cheap, and you can buy them big bulk
yeah.
for $5 or $10,
They're in
and
all my
then
first aid kits.
you're not wasting a whole tube of it every time you need to do it. You just open up one little individual foil pack.
Yeah,
Those foil packs, as long as you keep them out of the heat and extreme cold, that stuff will last a long, long time.
yeah,
And y'all ought to do yourselves a favor and get yourself some burn gel.
Yes.
Y'all saw the vidges from the TV a couple years back when the peaceful protests was happening. You hardly ever saw a camera angle where there weren't a fire burning in the background. Fire is a weapon. It has been for thousands of years. Probably more effective than most of modern weaponry. If you were to sum up the total body count inflicted by fire in the tens of thousands of years of human history, you're gonna find out that a lot of folks wish they had some burn gel.
yeah.
Yep.
And a
And you
monkey can make a Molotov cocktail.
Exactly.
get that burn gel in those same little foil packets. I've
And
got
anytime you
oh,
get into a party favor exchange, the likelihood that a fire's starting is pretty high.
Yeah,
and
Even
not
if
only
it's
a
just
fire, but
hot brass and dry grass, you could end up
tracers, the
rounding
tracers.
yourself in a conflagration.
Yeah,
something as simple as what happened to me in a training class one time. We were doing a break contact drill, and I had knelt down. There was another guy standing next to me. And when I knelt down, when I did this to get on the gun, your shirt kind of puffs up right there, right? And my shoulder harness puffed up with it. And he popped off some rounds, and a casing went right out of his rifle, went right down in there, and it stopped. Well, I kind of had other people around, and I couldn't just go doing a dance. So I had to keep doing what I was doing. And
yeah,
then it was time to fall back and break contact. So as I stood up and turned, the shoulder harness tightened up and the shirt tightened up, and the shoulder harness pressed that casing
Ouch.
into the nice soft flesh just to the side of my spine. And I
Ouch.
had to boogity 100 yards back to the rally point. By the time we got to the rally point, everybody got accounted for. It was another 3 or 4, 5 minutes before the drill was over with. Took my shirt off, and they had to peel the casing out of
yeah,
me. It took a layer of skin with it when it did. That was extraordinarily painful. I would have given anything to have had some burn gel then about that time
hmm,
and a way to bandage it up.
Exactly.
Simple little wounds like that. I mean, fortunately, when I got back to the hotel room I was staying at, I was able to get some stuff, and my wife was actually with me, and she was able to put some antibiotic ointment and stuff on there and bandage it up so it didn't get infected. But that was a spot that was burnt and raw meat. The chance for infection on that would have been extremely high,
yeah,
especially in a dirty environment where I might not be taking a bath every day. So, you know, the burn gel, the antibiotic ointment, all that stuff. That's what I say. And oh, I just remembered. Going back to what you said, Dick. Fire. So not only is there fires burning everywhere, but gun barrels tend to get hot and they tend to accidentally get touched. Um, Another little thing that certain things were made big use of is fireworks, and there's a fire in the fireworks part of that word. And I can tell you as a fact, as a child, and I say child, probably mid-teens, um, a malfunctioning Roman candle at the 4th of July one year, instead of sending all of its little flaming balls up in the air, it decided to blow one out the side. And as it came straight at me, I instinctively did that. Well, that flaming ball hit right here. Well,
Oh,
you know what happens whenever something hits the palm of your hand? You instinctively do that, right? So not only did it hit me, but I caught said flaming Roman candle ball in the palm of my hand and was going, wow, that's really, really hot. I should probably let go of it at some point. Let's get rid of the, yeah, now would be a good time. Well,
yeah. Too
within
late.
30 minutes, most of my fingers and the palm of my hand were a crispy white.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm just reiterating what you said. The burn thing is a legit deal. And then if you add in having to have cook fires to cook food, to boil water, fires to keep warm, I mean,
Well,
there's
one piece of advice that I could give, especially like hot barrels, when you have your tactical gloves, have actual leather palms. A lot of these gloves, they grip with some type of a polymer or rubber. Well, you touch a hot barrel or a suppressor, it's gonna melt, and it may melt it to your hand, but a leather won't. So that all of my tactical gloves are actual leather, at least on the
that's
palm.
that's why I like the good old plain old school flight gloves,
Flight gloves,
because you've
perfect.
got either a Nomex or cotton part up top and a leather palm, so that
Yep,
it may still burn you through it, but it's not going to melt it into your flesh. Same with the Nomex or the cotton. It may burn it off, but
yep,
it's not going to melt it into your flesh.
absolutely.
The plain old Nomex flight gloves are super, super good in that regards. They're not all tactical and fancy, but
Well, they used to be the bomb a while back. I
well,
mean,
they
they used to
still
be.
are. That's why I've
Yeah, they
got
still
like
are. They're
six.
good stuff.
That's why I've
You know,
got six pair of them, and I use them as work gloves.
I would,
Yeah,
I
right.
would rather take a pair of regular leather, real leather work gloves than some of
Yeah.
these, gee whiz, plastic this and plastic
Well,
that.
you guys are both old school like me. What did we use to get issued?
The
Yeah.
black leather
Black
gloves, and I
leather
used
work
those
gloves.
for 10
Love
years or
gloves with
more.
the full liners.
Yep,
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah,
Most,
yeah.
most
I ain't got a problem with the Nomex flat gloves, but they are a light duty glove. You
you
don't
gotta have.
want to be
Sure.
using that for palm protection while you're digging a DFP,
Yeah.
but they are pretty useful for handling hot things.
Well, just general, general light use, but that's also why I'm an advocate of having 5 or 6 pair of them stuffed back, because when one tears up, you chunk it and move
Right.
on to the next pair. But yeah, having a good set of leather work gloves, which like I keep in all my work equipment. If I'm getting out the manual earth mover, I'll put the big leather ones on. If I'm grabbing the chainsaw, I put the big leather ones on. If I'm swinging the axe or something, I got the big leather ones on. If I'm just creeping through the woods toting the party tool, I'll put the flight gloves on. It,
The beauty of those old army leather ones, and I still got mine, by the way. Um, they were they weren't a true work glove, but they were more than the Nomex, and you could kind of do all with it. That's what I
right,
like.
right.
And they were leather also on the outside, and thorns weren't going to grab you and things like
Well,
that. So
I got a pair of 100% leather Husky brand work gloves up at freaking Home Depot for like $15. And for 2 years now, I've been using the crap out of those things, and
Yeah.
they are absolutely awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to go spend, freaking $80 on a
Agreed.
pair of gloves. The freaking Huskies from Home Depot, the black GI ones, if you can still find them. I don't even know
Yeah.
if those are still available anywhere other than
You can
surplus.
find them in a surplus store or something. I've got a couple sets of them. Some of them that are smaller, like more for patrolling. So you have your
Right.
dexterity, and then you have the larger one that you put the green insert in. So yeah, I saved mine.
Yep.
Yeah. One recommendation I'll make for all y'all, just a little quick nugget of wisdom here. Don't go using your insulated winter gloves as work gloves, even if you're digging a hole in the snow. Switch out to some work gloves
Mm-hmm.
to preserve your insulated gloves, because the all it takes is popping a stitch in one of them finger seams, and now your winter glove don't work no more.
Yeah,
Yep. That is a good
agreed.
point.
Yeah,
Um, Let me see. Who was it that just asked this? Log Cabin School. I am still using those Magpul flight gloves, and I absolutely love them. They are they are the quality of them is better than just a standard run of the mill GI flight glove. They're also 20 or $30 more. Um, but I really like them because the I think they're going to last a lot longer. So far, they're lasting a lot longer than what my GI ones. So that's the most I would want to spend on a pair of gloves, and you can get them for I think $40 or so on Amazon, and they're the legit Magpul ones. But I wouldn't get above that for price on a pair of gloves. And believe me, I've tried a bunch of gloves over the years. Years back, before I even started doing the YouTube stuff, I had a couple of different companies that would send me their newest, latest, and greatest cool guy gloves to try out, and had all kind of super cool features on them, and they were great. But I sure wouldn't pay what they were asking for them,
yeah,
and I think I've got a couple pair of them stuck in a spare items bin somewhere. I've got flight gloves stashed with all my gear. So if that tells you anything. Let's see. Santiago's in the house. One of my other brothers. Yeah, don't be afraid, guys, to make use of what you can at the home ripoff. I mean, Home Depot and Wally World. I mean, they are what they are. But if you can take advantage of stuff like that, you'd be a
yeah,
fool not to.
yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
can get on your virtue signaling high horse all you want to, but at the end of the day, you're just cutting off your nose to spite your face. So, you know,
yeah.
um, let's see. All right, DJ, good night. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping in. Um, yeah, log cabin. It's been, has it been a year? I don't remember how long I've had those Magpul gloves. It might not have been a year yet, but I've been using them a fair amount. So um, I should have a video coming out pretty soon that I'll be using them in if you pay close attention. It's not the point of the video, but
I
they're in
usually
the
kept,
video to watch.
especially in the winter, I usually kept on my load bearing equipment. On the snap link, I had
Mhm.
a pair for patrolling, and then I had the leather ones with the inserts, that I could just change out right there as I'm going. So that was kind of what I did. I just have them hanging right there a D ring,
Well,
snap.
and like Dick said, don't use your winter gloves for work.
Yeah,
Save your winter
yeah,
gloves to keep your hands warm. But speaking of winter gloves, um, now where Dick's at, it gets a little bit more chilly than what it does for you and I know. But I actually like these right here.
yeah,
These are the winter flyers gloves, and they've got an actual leather palm, and that's Nomex on the top. It's got some insulation in it. You've got the cuff seal, so it helps trap all the air in there. And you can find these brand new on eBay all the time for 15, $20. They're not fancy. They're not going to earn you any cool guy points with all the folks on Instagram, but they're going to last a while and they keep your hands warm
Yeah.
while you're sitting around doing that guard duty in the cold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's see, Modern Frontiersman's here. Welcome aboard.
When I was in Ranger school, it was in the winter, and I went on one patrol that I had. There were, the nylon, fluffy, supposed to keep you warm at night, and they didn't work with anything. And I remember one morning I was pulling security in the perimeter, and it was so cold, it was starting to freeze. And I had those Army leather, black leather gloves with the inserts. They kept my hand warmer than those expensive, Gore-Tex, this and that. So to your point, John, you don't have to go out and buy all the Gucci gear. Sometimes, in my experience, some of the old Army stuff that's tried and true, maybe because that's just what I used, it'll get you, you find an Army surplus store and it gets you further down the road than some of this other stuff will.
For the ability to do double duty, a pair of the leather Army work gloves and the wool inserts, that gives you a set of work gloves and a set of winter gloves all in one caboodle. Yeah. And the good thing about those old inserts, they were wool. So, as long as you can tolerate a little bit of itchy scratchiness, it wasn't exactly freaking merino wool back then.
Yeah.
But
no, dry fast.
They dry fast and they keep your hands warm even if they're wet.
And if you had another dry pair, you can put them in.
Yeah.
Yep.
I always kept a spare set of inserts, and in a pinch, if you had the old the trigger finger mittens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you were real desperate at night and you were off your guard shift, just wrapping your spare wool socks over your hands, and then tuck your fist back inside the mitten.
Yeah.
Those were desperate times.
And I've got some of those trigger finger mittens. I used them. They're pretty worn too.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, we've been pushing on for an hour now, guys. Have y'all still got any other questions in the chat? Anything in particular y'all want to talk about?
We've covered a lot of subjects in an hour.
Yeah.
We introduced Dick. We went into medical, burns, tourniquets, and then gloves. How does that get there? I don't know, but we went.
We didn't touch on Tom.
And radios. We discussed radios too. This is a one-stop wisdom shop. How about that?
So, log cabin school's right. Joe Dolio is a big proponent of mittens. Mittens will always keep your hands warmer than gloves because it's keeping all your fingers together, touching each other, and it traps all the hot air in there around your hand. Whereas a glove lets cold air still be around your individual fingers, and it doesn't trap the hot air the same way.
And you know what? A lot of people don't know this, but on the M16, you have the lower part of the trigger guard. There is a spring-loaded pin. If you push that, it's on the magazine side. That piece folds down, and you can use mittens to fire your M16 or your AR. So
that's why the trigger guard pivots. Most folks don't even recognize that fact.
Absolutely, they don't know.
The trigger guard was designed that way for the specific purpose of winter gloves.
Yep.
Everybody's got them oversized trigger guards that they're putting on their guns.
They can't move them.
There ain't nothing wrong with the factory trigger guard. You just got to know how to push the button.
That's right.
Tip of a bullet does it real easy.
That's exactly right.
That's how we were taught. And I see a bunch of y'all throwing up some questions, and we can't get to all of them, guys, but I'll touch on a couple real quick. As far as opening up orders, I'll reopen orders as soon as I'm caught up, and I'll be caught up as soon as I'm caught up. I'm trying to get there as quick as I possibly can, but I can't tell you when it's going to be because it's as sure as I do, I'll come down with the flu for a week and freaking throw that timeline all out of cahoots. So the one that I think is right there, and I'll let both of y'all touch on it, but for me personally, I think there's I won't say it is, but I'll say all the ingredients are there and it's highly likely to be 2020 2.0, only I don't think it's going to be as tame. I think the potential is there for it to be far more spicy than what 2020 was. Now, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying the potential is there. You need to recognize that and keep that in your head and prepare accordingly.
I
Well,
think
I'll
by
let Noel first. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I think by 2024, this country is going to be a different country than we are now, and that can go a lot of different ways. But we're not going to have the same things as we're not going to. The government is not going to be the same. There's no way it can be. Things are
No.
continue.
Yeah, and I'll echo that sentiment. I believe that there are changes coming fast. Will 2024 look like 2020? Well, uh, y'all saw 2020. We survived it, but we set a very bad precedent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we let folks get away with that kind of shenanigans, and I don't imagine that they plan on making it less violent, less destructive, or less contentious the next time they have a reason to riot. So if you didn't learn your lesson from 2020, maybe you ought to go back and do the rewind and check again, because there are, as I said in one of my recent Q&As, there are desperate folks out there who are just waiting for an excuse to take what ain't theirs and hurt anybody who gets in their way.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's just one level of the potential problems. There's multiple levels to that. So,
Yep.
modern frontiersman. So, Joe Dolio is a big advocate of having a bayonet on a party tool. I know that partly comes from probably a little bit of crayon consumption, having been a Marine. But I will say this: there is a certain intimidation factor to a bayonet. Man still has it in our core DNA for all the literally thousands of years that sharp metal objects were the weapon of choice. Remember, it's only been in the last little over 100 years that we've had firearms. Before that, it was all sharp metal things: knives, swords, spears, axes, arrows, all of that. It's still somewhere in our DNA that sharp metal coming at our bodies is not something that we tend to like or enjoy. So I think it's not something that I go so far as to say you have to have, but I'm not opposed to it or say it's a bad thing either.
I'll tell you
Well,
what. So when you sit down in position and you're dealing with your sectors of fire, right? You got your far left limit, far right limit. Personally, that's where I want to keep them, and I don't want to get them that close. But sometimes I guess it happens.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And y'all know I ain't the CQB type, and if the enemy gets close enough for me to necessitate a bayonet, I done it wrong.
Yep. Yeah.
I ain't 22 years old no more,
Yeah.
and some of them fellers with good knees, a strong back, and without a tricky shoulder can probably inflict way more harm at that distance than I can. I'm not saying I don't know how to handle myself. I just prefer not to.
Yeah,
Right.
and rest assured, guys our age, if we got to go with a bayonet and we win that bayonet fight, we're going to be very sore in the morning.
Oh, and I'm going to be bragging about it the rest of my
Yeah,
short
that's
life.
right. I
Oh
want that
yeah.
trophy.
We'll be bragging about it while we're down on the ibuprofen like Skittles.
That's right. Got that right.
So,
Yeah.
modern frontiersmen, we are equal opportunity here. There is nothing wrong with your crayon consumption. That's perfectly fine. Um, just try to keep it to a manageable level. You know, Crayola can only put them out so fast, and you don't want the no-name Chinese ones.
Yeah, make sure they're the good ones, the Crayola brand.
Yeah, you gotta be a crayon snob sometimes. We love our Jarhead brothers. They're good for lots of
Yeah.
things. And yes, Brent did have a video on different mounts for M-LOK and Picatinny rails, and he and I have actually had a pretty lengthy discussion about those very mounts, and some are better than others if you're gonna go that route, and some aren't so good. And the bottom line is, I'll tell you up front, the ones that are any good are way more expensive than what I'm gonna dump the money on personally. So unless somebody wants to send me one as a present, it's probably not something you're going to see me spending money on, because for the amount of money one of them costs, there's a whole lot of other things I can
Yeah.
get that I think would be more.
The key
More.
takeaway from Cousin Brent's vidges is that guy is a mountain of man. His arms are longer than my rifle. So if we get into a bayonet fight with a feller that big, you know, I lost.
So Brent and I got to spend a little time together here just recently, and it was, some of you might have seen a couple of pictures that I put up. Do you know how nice it was to actually be able to take a picture and have someone next to me where we look the same height and I don't look like the Jolly Green Giant? Because every picture I'm in, I end up looking like the Jolly Green Giant next to everybody. It was so nice to have him, and like we're the same. Like, believe it or not, we wear almost the same size clothes. And it was just so nice to have somebody else there, so I just didn't feel like, some abnormal aberration or something. And yes, Brent is a large fella that I personally am glad that I'm friends with, because I would not want him ticked off at me, whatever you may think. Let's see. I don't want to drag us on too late, because I know you fellows have probably got better stuff to go do. Um, touch on this real quick, just because I got to give homage to the great Swamp Fox himself. Um, and yes, it is going to get worse before it gets worse. I think that's
It is. 100%. It is.
I think that's
It ain't getting better. Let's put it that way.
It's going to get worse.
no, not any time in the near future, I'm afraid. So, well, unless you gents have got anything overly pressing y'all want to bring up and discuss, we've dragged on for an hour and 15 minutes now. Probably a lot longer than what some folks' attention spans are.
Yeah. Including
So,
mine.
I appreciate you all having me here.
well, I sincerely appreciate you coming on, and I think we probably need to make it I won't say an all the time thing, because I know you're a busy fellow with lots of important things going on, but I'd like to have you on as regular as we can, just kind of maybe touching on things as they come up, and kind of play it from there.
I reckon we can make that happen.
Good.
Sounds good to me.
Good. Good.
All right, guys. Well, unless y'all got anything else, we'll close it out here. I appreciate everybody showing up in the chat. I'm going to try to start putting out a little more notice ahead of time. I know today I just got the one up this morning for tonight, but it's just been, if y'all knew what kind of chaos my days usually were, it's even a challenge to find time to work in to put up a, hey, we're doing a live stream tonight. That in itself is an accomplishment. So I will try to start getting all of it up sooner, so you'll have more of a heads up. But I think we're planning on trying to stick with Tuesday nights because that works
Yeah.
pretty good for us. But there may be other times depending on what's going on. So again, appreciate y'all showing up. If y'all got anything else to throw out there.
So, yeah. So, guys, you guys that are listening, um, like we were saying, things are not going to get any better. They're going to get worse. Please, if you are allowed to, or if you're not allowed to, but be sure that you have a firearm on you. Be able to protect yourself. Know the laws of the state that you're in, and have a long gun close by in your vehicle or something like that. Because, like I said, things I think are going to get really bad. So that's my 2 cents.
Dick, you gonna go get another beer?
I'm gonna get another beer.
All right.